Ahrefs saved $400 million in 3 years by not going to the cloud. All right. Let's hear about this. We just got done seeing DHH go all in on not the clouds. Clouds for IT infrastructure are so popular lately that moving into the cloud has become a trend. Infrastructure as a service, IaaS, I'm not even sure how to say that, IS. Cloud provides multiple advantages: flexibility, low time for deployment, easy scaling, instant presence in many regions of the world, and many others. Yeah, these all sound like great things, right? These sounds great. Hi, YouTube! Hey, can everyone say hi, YouTube? Hi, YouTube. Hi. Hey, press the like button. Just press it now. Just press it. Just press the button! Anyways, let's see. Cloud service providers have become knowledgeable outsources of IT services, providing convenient and often easy-to-use services, except for AWS's interface, which was designed in the 90s by a series of back-end engineers. With excellent marketing, conferences, certifications, and cherry-picked use case scenarios, it's easy for one to think that clouds are the only reasonable destination for the IT of a modern business. This is true. This is true. This is true. But the cost of these outsourced cloud benefits are sometimes high. They're so high, we were concerned about whether our business could exist if our infrastructure was 100% in the cloud. This inspired us to make an actual comparison based on facts and logic, not your feelings. And here what they are. Ahrefs' own hardware overview. Okay, so this is kind of exciting. Okay, we're getting kind of excited here. Let's see what happens. Ahrefs has a rented co-location data center in Singapore with a rather homogeneous infrastructure. So we decided to consolidate all the costs spent for this data center, divided them by the number of servers, and compare them to the cost of a similar installation in Amazon Web Services Cloud. Use this as the leading IaaS example. Okay, look at those. Look at how pretty that looks. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Would you look at that? It's all HTML. Can you believe this entire place just makes HTML? It's shocking. It's shocking how much HTML is made there. All right, our hardware is relatively new. The co-location contract started in the middle of 2020 during the peak of COVID-19 lockdowns. All the installed equipment has been bought since then. Our servers in the data center have similar configurations. The only difference is in the CPUs of 2 generations with the same number of cores. We use high core count CPUs, 2 terabyte RAM, and 2x 100 gigabits per server. Wow, that's a lot of gigawatts and even more terawatts of RAM. Look at how many terawatts of RAM that is. On average, our servers have about 16x 5 terabyte drivers. 16 by 15. I can't even do that kind of math. It's too big. That number probably doesn't even exist in real life. For the monthly cost calculation, we assume that all the hardware will be used for only 5 years. Okay, not bad. Okay, we decided to consider anything beyond 5 years a freebie. And based on this, the monthly part of the initial equipment cost is the original price divided by this. Okay, boom, 60 months. All the current costs, such as rent and electricity, are as of October 2022, although inflation affects us too. Trying to account for it makes these calculations much harder, so we've ignored it for now. Okay, but inflation, I would assume inflation affects everybody. Like if you're on AWS, your prices, have they slowly risen over the last little bit? I would assume they have to rise a little bit, because if electricity gets twice as expensive, one has to assume that AWS has to account for that somehow. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not an AWS magic magician calculating their numbers. Well, yeah, I sound a little bit different today. I have this plugged nose. Me and my wife both have had a plugged nose for the last 3 days, and we don't know why. Why? You know, I don't know. The co-location payments consist of 2 major parts: rent and de facto consumed metered electricity. The electricity price has significantly increased since the beginning of 2022, but we calculated our monthly charges based on the latest higher electricity charges, not on the average for the whole rental period. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I like this approach. You take the high point. Don't take the average, because the average is always going to be pulled down by some previous non-inflated price, which would be lower. Therefore, we should give AWS an advantage. Okay, good. Also, if we pay for IP transit and dark fibre between the data centers and our point of presence, The following table shows our monthly spend per server. Server hardware takes up 2/3 of the overall monthly expenditure, while the data center rent with electricity, direct current, internet, I assume that's what it is. Isn't it AC? What the hell's DC doing in there? Internet service providers, ISP, with IP transit and dark fibre, DF, down to fiber. And internal network hardware, make up the remaining 1/3. Okay, there it is, right here. Monthly cost, $1,500, 100%. This is per server. Something like that. AWS cost infrastructure. Since our co-location interview is in Singapore, we use AWS prices for their Asia Pacific Singapore region for comparison. The cost structure for AWS is different from the co-location. Unfortunately, AWS doesn't provide an EC2 instance with the number of cores we have. Ooh, this makes it hard. DC doesn't stand for data center. It stands for Diet Coke. Everybody knows that. So we have found an EC2 configuration with half the cores and 1 TB of RAM. Not as much gigawatts of RAM, but still pretty good. Pretty good. We then compare one of Ahrefs server costs with the cost of 2 such EC2 instances. Is that fair? Because usually, is it true that when you get to bigger machines, you get some sort of discount as it scales upwards? Or does it go the other way because they're harder to get? I always forget which way it goes because I just don't, I'm never looking at cost charts either way. You know what I mean? I have no idea. Disconnect cloud. Is that what DC stands for? Wow, it's way off. Also, we consider long-term EC2 usage. Thus, we compared the lowest price of the 3-year reserved EC2 instance for 5 years on on-premise services. Oh, they went with the lowest price. They went with the highest on theirs and lowest on EC2. Apart from EC2 instances, we added elastic block storage, EBS. It is not an accurate replacement for directly attached storage, as we use big and fast drivers in the servers. To make things simpler, we choose cheaper GP3 EBS, much slower than ours, though. It cost consists of 2 parts, storage size and charges for IOPS. We keep 2 copies of data chunks on our servers, but we only order usable space in EBS. That takes care of the replication for us. We should consider the price of the GP3 storage size equal to the size of our drivers divided by 2. Okay, that's a lot of math. This is a lot of math. I'm not sure if I can do this. Do you understand the divided by 2? Because apparently they have some sort of doubling of things, and so they're just not doubling it here. I'm dizzy. I want to see Netflix's AWS bill. So do I. Let's see. We didn't add the cost of higher IOPS. Is that how you'd say this? You just call it IOPS, IOOPS, IOOPS, IOOPS? We also discarded various limitations EBS GPT-3 has. For example, GPT-3 max throughput instance is 10 gigawatts per second. And at the same time, the performance of a single ICP Gen 4 NVMe driver is 6 to 7 gigawatts per second. Okay. And we have 16 of those working in parallel. Well, again, this is math I just can't do off the top of my head. 6 times 16? Impossible. So thus, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but this approach should significantly reduce the cost of storage in AWS, giving it a further advantage. Unlike the co-location, AWS charges per gigabyte downloaded, not for bandwidth. So we roughly estimate our average download per server is, and use the figure in AWS network calculation. Okay, so far what I'm really reading here is that they did what I think is a fairly good comparison. You know what I mean? They're really trying to give a fairly reasonable take on them both. If they were to transport their service and drop some of these items, such as their suite storage, which is significantly faster, which can have significantly more, but then there's some weird ones, which is how much is it downloaded versus how much is it used, blah, blah, blah. But it looks like this thing is literally about, 11 times more? 12 times more? That's a lot. Upon consolidation of the above tables, we see that the imaginary AWS spending is much, much higher. Remember, they also use the best EC2 cost and the worst energy cost on their behalf, giving the EC2 the best advantage. They also aren't considering their double storage and only doing single storage. So they're doing a whole bunch of make it work stuff. A replacement EC2 instance with similar usable SSD space in AWS would cost us roughly the same amount of money for all 11.3 servers in a co-located data center. Accordingly, that means our 20-server rack would transform into just 2 servers. Do you want that or do you want that is what they're saying. This or this. This or this. So let's say we run our 850 servers during an actual 2.5 years of our data center usage. Once we compute the numbers, we can see the dramatic difference. 39 million, 408 million. Yikes. So to be fair, I think if you had that many servers, you might be able to negotiate a slightly better rate. So maybe we could multiply this by 0.85. Would that be fair? Could we say that just for fun? Even at that, it's still like 9x more. This is, I don't know. Yeah, that might be a little too generous on my behalf. What about reserved instances? Yeah, that's still like 350 million. Yeah, it's still just a shit ton of money. I don't think so. Okay, let's just pretend we could. And so even if you say, hey, you know what? Your calculations are so wrong that you have to multiply this in half, right? You've assumed too much. Therefore, even if that were to happen, it's still 5x more expensive. 5x. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 5x. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? So even if you're that far off, it's still that much more. We would need to pay AWS a whopping $400 million more to keep our infrastructure running in Singapore since 2020. One may think perhaps Ahrefs can afford this. It's true. Ahrefs is a profitable and sustainable company. So let's take a look at our revenue and use it in our calculations. Let's go! That being said, we are a private company and aren't obliged to publish our financial data, but one can find some information about Ahrefs revenue in the Straits Times article on Singapore's fastest growing companies in 2022 and 2023. These articles provide Ahrefs revenue figures for the years 2020 and 2021. We can linearly extrapolate revenues for 2022, which is actually usually linear extrapolation is pretty, like, it tends to over project given enough time. It's a rough estimate, but it is enough for us to draw some conclusions. All right. Boom. Boom. Extrapolation. Okay. We're going to make some more money. Yeah. Making money. Hell yeah. From the table, we can see that Ahrefs' total revenue for the last 3 years would be $257 million. But we also calculated that AWS costs would be $448 million for such a data center replacement. Thus, the company revenue wouldn't even be close to covering our 2.5 year AWS usage. Oof. Imagine if all of your money you ever made went to just having AWS. Imagine such things as that. Imagine having $0. What a result. But where would all of our profits go? As per this 20-year-old report by Dr. L.J. Hart-Smith, for Boeing, if the prime manufacturer or system integrator cannot make his fortune by giving all his work away, who does benefit? The subcontractors, of course. This man saw into the future. The man was seeing in the future. It's crazy. This is actually crazy. It is good to remember that we already provided several advantages to AWS by using their higher than average electricity costs for our co-located data centers, calculating only storage parts of EBS and ignoring how slow the EBS storage is. Also, this data center is not only the only cost center for us. We spend money on other data centers, servers, services, people, offices, marketing, etc., activities, etc. Okay, so that's good. That is good to actually call out. Like, there are other costs involved in whatever you do. Therefore, Ahrefs would hardly survive if the cloud was our primary infrastructure destination. Other considerations. This article doesn't take into account other aspects that would make the comparison even more complicated. These include people skills, financial controls, cash flow, capacity planning depending on the load type, etc. Conclusion. Ahrefs has saved approximately $400 million by ensuring its infrastructure is not 100% in the IaaS. Can I call it an IaaS? Is that fine? In the IaaS. Cloud during the last 2.5 years. This figure is growing bigger, and we are currently starting another massive co-located data center with new hardware. While Ahrefs uses AWS benefits for hosting our front end in different parts of the world, the vast majority of Ahrefs infrastructure icebergs hide in the co-located with owned hardware. Ahrefs wouldn't be profitable or even exist if our products were 100% in AWS. If we could use a cloud-only approach, our infrastructure would cost would be 10 plus, I think 10x would be the proper term here, times higher, or 10 plus times higher. Okay, there we go. But because we didn't do that, or because we don't do that, we can spend the money we save on actual product improvements and development. Got him. Consequently, having fast and better results means that our servers are much faster than what a cloud can provide, given its limitations. Our reports are also generated faster and are more comprehensive, as the time needed per report is shorter. This is actually a really interesting point, which is, again, I hate shitting on serverless, but serverless is a more expensive version of this eventually. Right? At first, it's cheaper because you just don't have a lot of customers. But there does come a point where your usage dictates what kind of services you can use, and eventually it does get more expensive than just having your own version on AWS. But how much, I don't know. It depends on you, because you got to take into account like people managing this. People are expensive, so you have to have a certain cost factor that makes sense. It is easier to move off the cloud to cloud. Yeah. $13K per month. So how many network engineers and infrastructure engineers to manage those servers? Also your own risk. Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So it depends on your size. I think this is the point, which is there is a size point in which it does matter, but at $13,000 a month, it doesn't matter. How I like to personally think about it is whenever I think about an employee, because what you really have with an employee is you have management, you have taxes as an employer that you have to pay to the government that you don't even pay to the employee. These include like Social Security, that's 6%. There's other things you're paying. There's a lot of taxes you're paying. There's effectively warehousing, housing, cubicle, equipment, all that crap you have to pay for. Plus, you have to then pay the employee itself. Then you got healthcare. Then you got 401k match. You got all these benefits, everything that goes into hiring an employee. And a high-level network engineer, platform engineer, whatever you want to call it that runs this, I would just assume you're spending $1 million a year per employee, right? So you have to hit a certain level. You know what I mean? And so whatever that level is, I don't know what that is, but you have to plan for that. You know what I mean? Singapore is a pretty expensive country to pay for those costs too. Yeah. Retail pricing of AWS is only for startup and hobbyists. Enterprises get around a 50 to 70% discount. Yeah, I would assume they're also like I said, that's why I said cut this number in half. And you still, it still is really expensive. All right. Hold on, let's get to the right. Let's see. All right, let's see. On that note, I recommend CFOs, CEOs, and business owners interested in sustainable growth to consider and periodically reevaluate cloud benefits versus actual cost. While clouds are the natural go-to choice for early-stage startups, staying 100% in the cloud with substantial infrastructure may sink a company as it and its infrastructure grows. It's very, these are just really cool thought experiments to go through, because I think I think Donald Rumsfeld is the one that was popularized this saying, but I think it's older than anything he's done, which is there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. But there's actually a fourth category he doesn't mention, which is there are unknown knowns. Why do you think something is accepted, right? Why do you think only ever hosting on AWS or some cloud provider is the only way you should ever build your company? That's an unknown known. You have accepted that, swallowed it, and regurgitated it as the only possible outcome. Is it the only possible outcome? I don't know. It sounds like there's multiple companies, right? Imagine hosting Donald Rumsfeld. Well, I'm not imagining that. I'm just quoting him. So it's kind of interesting, right? It's kind of interesting to think about that you have these built-in ideas that you may not realize why you have a built-in idea, right? It's also because DHH said so. Well, he said so. Obviously, he has the most mature opinion out of all of us. But I am totally on board with using AWS serverless, whatever the hell you want to use when you're starting up, or until it becomes a cost factor. Like Netflix, I think there's this interesting curve that probably does exist, which is once you get so big and you make so much money, it might make more sense to go back to the cloud. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I actually don't know, because how do you reasonably, again, very complicated. Very, very complicated. I'm not sure if there's a solid answer. Tom doesn't have any unknown anything. He's a genius. That's true. For a more mature company, migrating from the cloud to its own infrastructure is difficult. Is this DHH? Let's see. It will also be challenging to keep the company alive during the migration, but such a painful move may be what saves the company, and it can avoid paying an increased cut of its revenue to the cloud services. Yeah, big companies, FANG in particular, vacuumed the job market for many years. They have been hiring engineers to run their enormous data centers and infrastructure, leaving only a few smaller companies. But with the mass layoffs in big tech in the recent months, this may be an opportunity to reevaluate the approach to the cloud. Consider a reverse migration from the cloud and hire seasoned professionals for the data center world. Yeah, I mean, Netflix in some sense does this. We have our OCA network, right? So our OCA network delivers all the content across the world. We have the most effective content delivery network in the world. And so we deliver a 33% of the internet from it, which is crazy to think about. OCA stands for Open Connect Architecture. So if you just look up Open Connect Architecture, here. Open Connect. Netflix. There we go. You can learn all about Open Connect. It's super cool. It does everything. This is an exceptionally sophisticated content delivery network. Exceptionally sophisticated, right? It's crazy what it does. What about YouTube? I don't think YouTube transfers nearly as much data as Netflix. I'm pretty sure Netflix is the largest of all services. If I'm not mistaken, Netflix transfers more data than porn, which is crazy to think about. Because y'all are a bunch of degenerates who love porn. Or really, you're just addicted. You think you love it, but you're just addicted. I love smoking cigarettes. Okay, calm down. There's no way. It is crazy. It is crazy. No way. Yes way. Press X for doubt. Percent of internet traffic. Does it have, let's see. Most popular social platforms. Nice. Netflix. Yeah, this is unique viewing. YouTube should definitely win unique viewing. Oh man, where's the thing? They used to have like this really nice little pie graph that just showed what it is. It's 15%. Oh wow, we've fallen down in the last little bit. The real question is, how is Netflix? I hope we never do. What about the amount of servers needed to stream your videos? Well, that's what we have. We have a whole network for that. Yeah. You don't watch porn for 2 hours at a stretch, as you would a movie. You don't want 8 hours of something. Debunked. Your V-take. I'm not sure what a V-take is. Still, I think we might still destroy it. Anyways, how many racks? I would never know the answer to that. The answer is crazy. It's crazy how much is actually going on. Anyways, hey, pretty exciting. I really liked that article. That was awesome. How much? What is that was a great article, huh? Everyone happy with that? I'm really happy about that. Are you happy? I'm happy. Are you happy? I'm happy. Anyways, the name is considered Cloud Storage Gen.